right, here we go. Welcome, everyone. This is the Do No Evil, Speak No Evil show, where I interview awesome individuals making a positive local impact. I'm your host, Blair Neher, a.k.a. the Chief Primate. My guest today, Scott Tucker, founder of U.S. Vet Life. U.S. Vet Life helps educate active duty and retired veterans on insurance and other financial benefits that they are not being made aware of. Scott's a Navy veteran himself, so first of all, thank you for your service, man, and thank you for coming on the show.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks. I'm actually Army. I went to Army. If I didn't go to the academy, I would be.
Oh my God! So I screwed that up. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I thought.
Well, everybody around here is Navy because like half the people in Synapse are.
I thought
Navy
you and
people.
Muka were Navy together.
No, that's funny. We got things mixed up each other. I thought he was Academy grad for the longest time, and I kept on introducing him that way. And then he thought I was Special Forces, and I never was. And so he kept introducing me that way. So it's a common mix-up, especially in the veteran community as well.
I know you guys constantly are Navy versus Army type stuff in the Synapse meetings and whatnot. So I really apologize for screwing that up.
No worries.
So I got to give a big shout out to our host, who has again let us use their facility for the show, Optima Med. Optima Med is a higher education consulting firm based here in Richmond. Optima Med provides college admissions and financial aid coaching for students, with the end game being attendance at the best fit college at an affordable price, leading to the right career. So again, thanks Tom Leahy, and I'm Optima Med. All right, man. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. By the way, Tom's an Army vet as well.
Yes.
And a great guy.
Yeah, he is. I had him on the show last week.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and we had, actually went like an hour and a half. We talked for a long time about Beacon Tree and Optima Med, so it was cool. So, man, let's get right into your story, Scott. Your company is doing some positive things in the veteran community. So let's talk about your story, your passion, and how you got where you are today.
Yeah. Well, really, I'm from small town Ohio. My dad was a football coach. My mom was a kindergarten teacher. So, kind of unbeknownst to me, I came up through that hey, let's help other people, let's influence others that come behind us, and try to teach them something. So, I ended up going to West Point. And West Point's, they always teach you, about leadership. It's what are you going to do now, platoon leader type of mentality. And so that just, I guess, became in my blood a little bit. But what you find I was at West Point when 9/11 happened. So everything really shifted for us. Like literally our senior year, George Bush gave that new Bush doctrine, where almost preemptive strike type mentality, and we're looking at each other going, hey, I think we're about to go to war with Iraq. Like at our graduation speech. And sure enough, less than a year later, a lot of my classmates were down there. I went a year after that. And unfortunately, to be honest, brutally honest, what you come to find out is, while yes, there's leadership, you want to be a good leader and represent the rules and regulations and the ethos of the Army, and make sure you're leading your soldiers. But a lot of the times you're really just a manager in the military. And so when I came out of the military, much like any, you go through this transition process you always talk about. And sometimes you're lucky and you find a good career field. A lot of guys struggle to find jobs. And then if you can find a career that has upward mobility, that's a whole nother figured that out. Now, to figure out how to navigate that career and find a real purpose aligned with it, sometimes there's just too many ducks in a row that you got to knock down. And by that age, you got kids and stuff or other responsibilities. My story is a little different. But you come out of this transition process, and eventually, for me personally, I kind of hit a point where I don't ever think I was a leader. Like in the real true sense, can I lead people into something? And that motivated me to be like, hey, I want to break out of this standard path that they told me that I had to go down, and say, let's see what happens. It's like, all right, that was a great life. I can talk to you about travel, living in Europe for 11 years, running with the Bulls, and that stuff's fun because it gave me all these ideas and perspective on how other people live around the world. And I got upset, and a lot of veterans get upset, now 15 years later, 16, 17 years later, after we all started going to war, and we're still there. Not everybody seems to realize it. it kind of pisses me off. It pisses a lot of veterans off. And in a way, you look at all this political mess that's going on, especially all driven by the media, and we're all sitting here going like, what are you guys talking about? Like, we got it pretty good here. And that's kind of where I'm at. And as I'm nearing my 40th birthday, I said, hey, let's go see what it's like to try to actually be a leader for once.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it's such a common story for when a veteran gets done with their service, discharged, even honorably, that they have no idea what to do next.
Right.
There's a huge gap there, and that's what I gather that you're trying to fill. And you hear the same story, even just in that guy, I think Adam, that was in the Synapse meeting. He came out, ended up working at gas station because he didn't know where to best apply his skills. So it's a common theme, and it often leads to the terrible end of things that we're trying to fight as well with some of the groups in Synapse, and that's the veteran suicide rate.
Yeah.
And that's just an atrocious topic that we don't need to dive into, but it seems like there's just such a huge gap there, and I guess that's what you're trying to fill.
Well, yeah, and I'm trying to do it from a different angle, because I'm one of those people who sees the world with brutal reality. I just kind of went through the ringer in a way where, I'm in this career. I'm making more money than I ever made in the Army when I was an officer. I'm getting to make my own schedule, and this is as a financial, planner, financial advisor, just that standard kind of, hey, Mr. Johnson, here's your stocks, and it's like saving for retirement 40. I don't know why your accounts are down. It's because the whole stock market's down. Like, oh my God, this is a horrible. I'm uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable. The compliance people are upset. Like the whole thing just upset me. So. I just thought there was a better way to do the transition. And so when we talk about and we got to talk about those things like suicide, because it's real, and whether or not the 22 number is real, and a lot of it is actually the pre 9/11 vets that are still forgotten even after all this goodwill that we got post 9/11. These are the ones that are finally hitting that kind of point in life where we say, like, what was it all for? And so that's where, when we focus on the financial aspect of this, we can maybe there's lots of organizations that help people with PTSD, and if they are having issues, there's places to go now. There's nothing really preventative, where everything's still Band-Aids. And 10 years ago, when the paleo thing came out in the CrossFit world, and everybody started saying, oh, the food is thy medicine, your medicine is thy food, the Michael Pollan book. And so that was a big epiphany. I mean, it's quite obvious. But that's, the military is this giant bureaucracy. It's going to move slowly. We're the best military in the world technologically, but we all know they invented those planes 40 years ago. Like the ones we're flying now, the stealth bombers, it's crazy. And so when guys are coming out and they don't know where to go, it's really because we're coming out as professionals, but we don't know how to tap into the rapidly changing environment and that's happening right now in the information age. This is a revolution, an absolute revolution, no different than the Industrial Revolution was. Yeah. Look how we have no idea what we're going to be dealing with in just 5 years from now, like when it comes to these phones. So, yeah, I can go on about that kind of stuff for a while. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's changing so quickly, and it's changing faster than it ever has before. Yeah. So let's get a little bit. We're both in Synapse, but let's get into a little bit why you moved to Richmond from gorgeous San Diego.
San Diego, right? Yeah,
that seems like a crazy move, especially weather-wise.
Yeah, the weather, it has been raining here, but I lived in Germany for 11 years before that. So going to San Diego from anywhere really is kind of a shock, because I mean there's no humidity, there's no heat, there's no cold, there's no snow. It's kind of perfect all the time.
All the time.
And so I love San Diego, but I was eager to get out of there, because what I found is a city like that has tons of distractions, right? There's just way too many things going on, and there's so many people going there without that really kind of plan or purpose in place. So you get there and it's like, well, it's super expensive and everything's chaotic because the state's just got rated the lowest quality of living in the country. But everybody there thinks it's amazing. So they forget. This happened to my fiance when when she came to Richmond. She was like, oh my gosh, everything's green, everything's nice. There isn't trash everywhere. There aren't, people like in your way all the time being angry at you. And I was like, yeah. This is America, So and unfortunately, there's a lot of military in the San Diego area transitioning out, and they kind of fall into that. And so it's really, really hard to get these things going because there's 2,500 nonprofits focused on the veteran military community in San Diego alone. And so they all start to kind of, running into each other. So when I first came to Richmond, I immediately, and then of course saw Synapse, I immediately knew that this is a solution that a city like San Diego needs because, one, luckily, it's a great incubator for these concepts that I want to kind of merge together by finding this great thing like Synapse and be able to work with Keith to look at exploring into military communities. It's also a very military supportive town. There's lots of military around, but it's not saturated like a Norfolk or Virginia Beach or DC or San Diego is. So we can kind of play around with these ideas, see what happens, and look what happened just last week in the Synapse meeting. Chris Belcher shows up. I saw him on Facebook, told him to come to Synapse. He showed up. I heard 3 things out of his mouth. He was very specific. He knew what he wanted. He had a problem, and he asked for something. And I said, that this guy knows what he wants. And I was like, I want him on my team. I could have never figured that out in San Diego because everybody's going 1,000 different directions. So that quickly, we're seeing things and implementing this new concept of, hey, these guys coming out of the military, they don't need a resume. I mean, of course, you technically need a resume and stuff. I'm not saying that, but we don't need to translate our resume skill or our military skills onto a resume. That's the buzzword, is translating onto a resume. So if I turned a wrench in the military, well, I'd be great at turning a wrench out of the military. Nobody ever bothered to ask, do you want to turn a damn wrench out inside the military? And so this is an opportunity to, instead of writing a resume, write your story. Instead of going to a job fair, go to one of these groups like Synapse. There aren't many out there. And this is what's going to be new and unique and big and huge to be able to change when a guy like Chris comes in, tells a story a little bit. Hey, single dad, I'm hustling out there. I need help finding leads. Like, wow, nobody talks like that in Synapse, right?
Yeah.
So when they do, they stand out. And all this guy did was be honest about his story. And it resonated with, it didn't have to be me who happened to be a former veteran. It could have been anybody who said, wow, maybe I wasn't even there. And somebody said, you should probably meet Scott because he connects guys like you. So if we start the communication versus the, hi, do you have a job for me? And that's a two-way street. I'm not blaming anybody here. I have to say this is the monster that's been created with the here's the military bureaucracy. We're not going to teach them any life skills, which that's not their job in the military.
Yeah.
But we say, oh my God, how do we take care of veterans afterwards? It's literally communication going straight past each other. And I'm a language guy. I was a Portuguese major at West Point. I spent 11 years in Germany. I loved experiencing cultures and trying to figure out how do you learn from them and communicate them, and that's what our country needs right now. They need to bridge that divide so people can remember, hey, oh yeah, we're still in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria, if anybody didn't remember. And by the way, when these guys come back, they're not just hard workers as veterans. They have unique skill sets and stories and dreams that they've been boxed into this, hi, I'm a soldier, once a Marine, always a Marine. Well, if we say, no, it actually looked like you were on speech team in high school, like I was, or in drama club. I didn't even think until I was almost 40 to realize, like, oh my God, I actually like performing and presenting and getting up on stage. Like, that filled me up. Never got to do that in the military, unless you're given like here, General so-and-so, the stats on the pipelines are 50. That was my only briefing in the military.
So what was interesting to me is, it was such a perfect example. Belcher came to that meeting, and we hooked him up with Chris Beach. But then I saw him post a few days later on his Facebook. He was like, "I had no idea about post-veteran or veteran benefits post duty."
Yeah.
And how long has he been out?
I don't even know his exact date. He was a Marine recruiter.
Right.
So these guys are very in tune with the military systems and stuff. And he's been out for at least 5 years, I believe.
And he was like, I have no idea. And that was really impactful to me, that the person's been out that long, talks to you for less than a week, and is all of a sudden enlightened.
Right.
So am I missing something? Did he come work for you, or is he still doing the windows? Or
no, we've got him now. He is going to be. I don't know if I can officially announce this, but our director of military and veteran affairs and relations. Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, this is. I mean,
so he's done with the windows, and
no, we've actually.
He's gonna do both.
Well, actually, better than that. We had. I should probably check with Eric and see if I can say this, but no, we basically just said, no, dude, why you're the number one salesman. You know, why keep doing that? And he's a single dad. He's got he's hustling to take care of his awesome daughter Ellie, who's literally hanging out at the office right now with us. And
she was at the Synapse meeting.
Yeah, and we got plans for her as well to be involved in all this. But it's like, no, you can actually help them better by tapping into our network. And now Pella has now hired him as a consultant rather than a salesman. Yeah, so that's our whole system. Is we're not trying to give people jobs or create careers. We're creating a new thing around mentorship. It's everything multi-level marketing should have been, and they screwed up. You know, and they really screwed up when the internet came, because then everybody's trying to do both, all this internet marketing, and it's like, no, it's still about the relationship. But because of the new revolution that we're in right now, it's not the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution took everything from America coming from basically mentors and apprentices. Like, hey, I want to be a cobbler, whatever. So this is how you learned a career, a field. You go get some education around that. But in the 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever, when all the jobs started, then pensions started, then expectations started. And so that's what we know, and what we were born into. And so it's only happening right now that people were born into the information age. Like, kids coming up 20 years from now will have had the phone the whole time. It's not going to be new for them. But we still have this 20-year gap. We can't forget these people, and they can actually come out and be leaders and make sure we do this revolution right. Because otherwise, things are getting crazy. I mean, that movie, what was that? The movie that the South Park guys made, or the Idiocracy. Like, it's gonna go that way if we don't stand up and stop it.
Welcome to Costco. I love you. So I don't know. Probably the majority of our listeners or who's watching do know what Synapse is. So I'll just give it the quick 5-minute. And I'm having Keith Reynolds on at the end of the month, so I'm kind of trying to wait for that to burst a bubble. But it's just an awesome networking that is tied to nonprofits, and it's done differently, and it draws a different type of person, and it draws the right type of person. It's not a person pushing a card in your hand with a cheap suit on that could care less about the actual relationship. It is all about the relationships, and it completely changed my ability to go out on my own. I would have never been able to go out on my own 2.5 months ago had it not been for Synapse, and it allowed you to move here and to do what you're doing. So it's just an incredible.
Walked into a family is what it feels like, and just I haven't seen anything like it. I'm super lucky that Richmond is an awesome city, and this happened here. Right? This is something's going to happen in Richmond in about 5 or 10 years. You can just feel it. It's crazy.
And it's, I went reluctantly to a meeting. I was like, I'd been to these things before. Yes, I have people that make me pens. Yes, I have an insurance agent. I'm good. But it was like, who you should talk to is this person. And another person was like, who you should talk to is this guy. And I'm like, this is completely different and like nothing I'd ever experienced. Yeah. And I was all in. As soon as I realized what it was about, I was all in. And I can't wait to have Keith on. So tell me exactly, or let's talk about how U.S. Vet Life got started and any history that you want to.
Sure. Well, it's kind of a long story, so bear with me. But when I got out of the military, about 2007 or so because I was dating a German opera singer. And I was like,
of course you are.
There's no opera singing in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, so I guess I'm going to be just getting out of the Army and hanging out in Germany. Like, totally, like, that's going to work. And so no real plan, except for I did, at a Halloween party, where I was dressed as a cowboy, I think. I ran into another West Point grad who was working for a financial firm, but in Germany, but American firm, working for Americans. So it's very unique, and I was just like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. So I stumbled into the broker-dealer world of financial planning. Kind of, these things got set up in the 80s. The entire industry got set up that way, and it's actually imploding right now because it's crazy rules and regulations. Broker-dealers can't make any money, and then they don't get any support to the advisors. So that was already happening 10 years ago. I just went to an office. There's another guy who'd been in the industry for 30 years. You'd think he's making a couple $100,000 a year. You'd think he'd know what to do to teach us. And he would literally come in and say, what do you think we should do today? And I'm like, oh boy, I don't think this is how this industry is supposed to go. But I was stuck in Germany. So we just kind of made it work. And eventually I found a mentor who I was hustling, sponsoring golf tournaments, and I'd get a few leads here and there. And I finally had a mentor just totally flipped us around. We got some bigger clients and stuff. But that eventually turns into, there was no system. There's no, like, what are we talking to them about? Like, how we help? Oh, we're just helping people. It's like
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's more problems. And then people get upset because the market changes or they get a divorce. And it's just, wow, things start getting messy because we just work with anybody. There's no like perfect client stuff. So then I get to San Diego after 11 years in Germany, and our plan was just to kind of keep doing the same, but I tapped into the San Diego market and ran into all those same problems I was describing earlier, and I really just, and then I went through my own kind of like, what am I doing? Like, I really started going down, and it just like, what's the point of all this? Like, if I'm supposed to be a financial advisor, like, advising somebody on a budget or portfolio, like, got it. There's people out there doing that if you really need it, because you can also Google it pretty easily and watch some free YouTube videos and not go through this painful, go into somebody's office, sit there for an hour or two, and just, nobody wants to do it. That's why it's hard to get clients. And 95% of people in the industry fail. And financial firms don't tell people that when they get in. They say, oh, we'll hire you as you're a veteran. Oh, we love having veterans working at blank and blank financial. Mm-hmm. Except for the fact that you have to burn through your savings. Most of you will fail. And for the rest of you that make it through, you're going to do okay. And a couple of you will be killers, and make it look good for everybody else, and keep the fodder coming through. That's just what is happening in the industry. Been happening for decades, but it's just getting bad right now because these firms are losing market share to the internet companies, and so they're just trying to really go after this easy fish. So I see that. I see the military transition process where guys can't find this passion, and then whether or not that happens to them in another industry or it's in the financial industry. I'm saying this is a mistake. We're missing something. The entire military world wants to help people. This whole veteran space, we help veterans. I really want to help people. And then we do this whole, let's do financial readiness and make sure people are saving their money and learning how to save for retirement. And we're like, you know what? We're in the 1% of Americans. That's what everybody always says. You're the 1% who served our country. It's so very few do, in population-wise. And why aren't we also being taught how to be in the other 1% that everybody... Wouldn't it be better if more veterans were in that 1%? The 1% everybody complains about these days? I want to be a financial advisor. If they say fiduciary, fiduciary is like, put them in not to your own advantage. Well, my advantage as a financial advisor is to make my clients or people I want to work with the most successful they can be. That doesn't mean advising them for some long off retirement or portfolios, this many stocks, this many bonds. Like, computer can do that. I want to advise them how to use that opportunity of having served in the military, use their benefits, use their wealth that they can easily create if they're not being taught to go buy shiny cars when they're 25. They simply just put a few $100s away. So these things just were this mess of like, what am I? Am I financial advisor? No, that's icky. It's screwing up the conversation around what this is supposed to be. My career coach? Nah, that's also screwing it up because it's just getting guys a job and then they end up miserable or risk being that way, years later if they don't get lucky and find that perfect one, or if they give themselves some sort of buffer room. Because going and get an education, Tom Leahy at OptumEd will tell you that just using the GI Bill for free education doesn't align those things, because the finish rate is something like 4% of veterans who go into college. And I know Tom's trying to fix that, and we want to do everything to support him. So really, and this is the Richmond story, the conclusion to that is when Brian introduced me to Eric, he just quickly said, oh, you just need to flip your brand upside down, and you can do all these things. And we can just do it in a different way. And so now that has morphed from what was really just let's create a veterans-focused insurance agency, is now as U.S. Vet Life isn't just about life insurance. We just start there because it's the most, when it comes to military benefits, it's the most misunderstood thing. I mean, it's the most important as well because there's so many different variables going on there. And it just gets ignored like, you've got a group life insurance with the government, and just kind of thrown off like that. And so it starts to backfire. So that's when we started with that. But now, as we've created so many new opportunities, we're growing in 13. We've got representatives in 13 states, and we're just growing constantly. And not employees. These are just affiliates, and that's what we call it mentorship marketing. These are apprentices that we can bring them into the financial industry, or just help them learn how to network, brand, use social media and online branding properly to create their own mission and brand. We can send them off, and it just so happened that right now they're getting started in the financial industry if they work with us directly, but they don't have to. And so that just opens up all sorts of doors for helping a veteran create a life, to live the vet life, right?
There you go.
And
I gotcha.
and so, and honestly, it didn't necessarily start off that way. This is what's morphed, but it's kind of come together in just this weird way of one of those things with like the universe. When I need something, it just shows up, and I think it has a little bit to do with the shaman trip a year ago, but we'll see.
Is that in the desert?
Yeah, it was in Mexico.
I won't ask any more about that.
Oh, I love talking about it. It's great, but maybe another time. I'm going to use it if I get when I get a talk. I'm going to explain how going outside the box, and I tried to do the VA. Go to the veterans meetup groups. I didn't resonate. At one point, they gave me depression meds, and I'm like, I don't really think. I guess I don't know. I'm sad, and it made things worse. And I was like, well, I would. They call me up like, how do you feel? I don't know. What am I supposed to feel? Well, here's some more. And that's so story. Luckily, I stopped that pretty quick because I was like, this is just dumb, because I was a fitness paleo guy, so normally I knew there was something bad about that. But at that point, a lot of guys just kind of try stuff because I wasn't PTSD. I was just lost. And frankly, after I went to the shaman and was like, I think I'm depressed, and my dad had just died and all that. And then after I went through the experience, he was like, no, brother, no. You're not depressed. You're just bored. Just crazy. Just like, yeah, what the hell are we doing? Like, I'd stop being bored. It's not fun. Stop having expectations from whatever people think of how you're supposed to do any of this whatsoever, right? And, it just totally allowed me to see things. I can literally read books the way I read them before. When I read them now, it's like kind of like, oh, I can read that language now. Some of the kind of more esoterical stuff, like Ram Dass or whatever. Like I had that kind of stuff before, like or Eckhart Tolle, Be Here Now. I got that, the concept of being present and stuff. But then now when I read it, it's like a whole different book. It's really crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, is there a difference between U.S. Vet Life and U.S. Vet Wealth?
Yeah, so Vet Wealth is another firm we're starting to launch here soon, and that's just kind of a smaller subsidiary in a way of doing the wealth management aspect of this. But we're actually doing it pretty cool because we're using technology and stuff. It's like, listen, it's 2018. there are plenty of industries where people recognize, hey, Blockbuster ain't gonna cut it anymore. A little guy called Netflix, and pretty much as everybody's going there. And guess what's happening in the financial industry? Nothing. I mean, there's some smaller firms out there, guys doing some whiz-bangy stuff, but in general, these companies are so huge that they can't really, innovate other than, putting up lots of cool calculators and making it fancy on the website. It's nobody's fault. It's just this technology is so new and stuff. So that gives us opportunities to kind of open up that middle market American that normally gets totally ignored, which is who? The military. The financial institutions think the military are poor. If they are working to them, bigger companies, more like a USA, Navy Federal, of course, they've got a very specific niche and a huge membership, and they're doing great things for the military community. I'm actually in the USA Influencer Network and going to their private conference here in a few weeks, and so very excited to be working with these organizations. So I'm not poo-pooing them. It's just this kind of financial planning thing that was very important from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. But it's just really morphed, and nobody's really changing to, how that industry works, and we can update that. And so, vet wealth is kind of more around the traditional, money management, I guess, stocks, bonds, mutual funds type stuff. Hey, talk financial planning if people want to get into estate planning, that kind of stuff. On the vet life side of things, we focus, and these technically have to be separate entities. I mean, I always love teaching. I love teaching people that would otherwise know different, because a financial people typically don't tell how the sausage gets made. Not that they're trying to hide anything. Quite frankly, nobody gets it. A lot of times I don't get it. I love having experts available to me, like that right now, just to be like, dude, how does this work? Because it's complicated. It's way too complicated. So we try to be super transparent, use robo-advisors on the wealth side of things, just to make it easy for someone to pop online in 2 minutes, open an account, and we can get military people, dudes are getting sold 20%, if not worse, car loans right outside the gate of all these military installations. And the commanders kind of just let them do it, but guess what they're not allowed to do? Invite financial professionals on base. They can kind of do it, but it's all really sketchy. And so that limits someone just to be like, listen, I don't need to show my buddies that I'm cool and got a new Mustang, but they kind of get peer pressured into it. What if you were the cool guy? I said, look, dude, I got this app on my phone, and I can start doing $500 a month. It says right here, conservatively, in 20 years, I'll have $100,000. Sounds like a better option to exit the military than with less than, which if you look at the stats, over 55% of veterans when they leave the military have less than $5,000 in any account saved up. So how are they supposed to have the freedom, the flexibility to do it? So we want to focus on not having people do, and this is more on the vet life side of things, actually it's kind of for both, but don't have, worry so much only about a retirement account. What about an opportunity fund, a transition opportunity fund, giving yourself the flexibility, if needed, to start a business, to create other sources of income? That's what a financial advisor should be teaching people to do. How do you create multiple sources of income? Because what they don't tell anybody is, regardless of how cool your next job is, if it's only one source of income, when that industry, I'm not talking about when that company or that job might go under if they don't keep up with technology. If the industry goes under, what do you do? And so we solve that at Vet Life by not trying to just tap into a quote-unquote niche market. Oh, you work with the military, you have a niche market. I think niche, that's an insulting word for our military and veteran community. This isn't a niche. This is a new, untapped market. And so we're literally creating it because we want our market to be wealthy people. Wealthy people buy more services and stuff. I mean, that's the whole point, right? So if we're the ones helping them create wealth and opportunity for themselves, well, then we've created a massive amount of influence that we can probably use a lot better than any of these political parties to go create real change for good. I'm frankly not political left one way or the right, like either side. I think they're all knuckleheads, and this is an opportunity we need more than ever for veterans to be influential and not stuck in a cubicle working for the federal government because they had a good security clearance. Like, be better. Like we know we don't want to do that, but we're told, oh, go do that. That's a safe option. Wow, that's tremendous limiting the potential, and it's deflating. It's deflating, but I think I'm doing the right thing because, I'll get that safe government paycheck. That's the safe way to retire, bro. We didn't sign up to serve for that, and we got kind of all the messaging got mixed up. So this is I'm not saying I'm not mad and that we need to we need to fix everybody. Like there's nothing to be fixed. There's nothing wrong. There's where we are right now, and there's the opportunity. Of what we do next.
Yeah. And you hear of even guys being sold cars before they even come back. If I buy a car in Kuwait, then I don't pay this or that. They come home with the Hemi Charger,
big bills, or
they come home with the Hemi Charger, and then
it's guys young, even coming out of West Point. I was 23, but that's the first time you get a paycheck and freedom at the same time. And you think most of the young enlisted entering the service are coming in at 18, even if they're getting $1,000 a month. Like, did you get $1,000 a month when you're 18? Like, no, it's crazy money. And if you're living in the barracks, well, shit. I mean, sorry, I don't know. What's $700 going to a car payment and an insurance payment and gas? I got $300 left to go to the bars. Like, right. It's crazy. Hooters. But we just kind of look at them and go, that's Joe being Joe.
Oh, those young guys.
Why would we do that?
So, what's your take on the current state of veteran benefits, and how they're explained to people when they come out of the service? It's obviously a mess. Yeah. And it's obviously, I forget what.
Actually, ironically, it's quite well organized. Too well, I mean, it's just a massive amount of information. Everybody gets it in different piecemeals, and I think
it's a class, right?
Well, there's different things. So we need to talk about the different types of benefits, just to make sure that because a lot of times when people say, "Oh, my veterans benefits," they're only thinking VA. Because that's obvious, the Veterans Affairs, and a lot happens there. You can get a lot of education,
medical,
but it's typically a medically focused thing. And so, cool, great. Make sure you go get your VA benefits. I got no comments on the VA per se. And then there's education benefits, right? And that's very specific to usually the GI Bill, and you can pass that around to spouses and stuff. And hey, that's a great benefit. And then over here is this whole financial benefit thing. Surprisingly, not talked about all that much, other than here's how you get your paycheck. It's called a leave and earnings statement, an LES, and there's a couple other things, and you get thrown at like retirement fund and some assurances, and once every so often you have to go change a beneficiary, or you sit down through a quick PowerPoint presentation. Which, hey, when you have a PowerPoint presentation in the Army, that's where you take a nap usually, right? and guess who needs to know this information the most? The spouse. Guess what typically happens? Like, hey, honey, they said we got to sign here. Like, what? What is this? Oh, don't worry about it. And so this happens, way too often. It's understandable because we're doing this again, the kind of 1980s corporate way of disseminating information, and patching technology on top of it. And what we're not asking is this benefit even good? Like, and it's not that they're bad. There's never a bad government benefit, but really, technically, these are recruiting tools to get people to join or stay in the military. Let's be honest here. That's what a paycheck is. And so the fact that when you go to a government website and put in, you can, meet Joe on the street, what rank are you? How many years have you been in service? Pop it into the government website, and it will spit out exactly what they're getting on average per year. And it's going to be a lot more than even they know. Like literally, but sometimes even double. They'll think like, oh my God, I thought I was getting paid $30K. It's actually like 80, because they have all these allowances and stuff. So they need to understand that when they enter the job market, what their actual value is, and then how they were getting paid before, because all that stuff gets really mixed up. And so that pays the benefit, the insurances are benefits, retirement things. They're not benefits in that there's something you have access to, but they should be something you control. They still impact the individual soldier or whatever. So that's where it gets mixed up, because they don't end up finding out that these really weren't benefits per se until they go to get out of the military. And sometimes that's after a 20-year career when they're in their 30s and 40s. And then and if it's insurance, it's like, well, I got to do insurance by myself now? Like, I didn't know this. Or I didn't know my military pension was worth, almost $1 million, like in true value. And if something happens to me, it just goes away. Or I got to pay, a government program X%, but then unless I die early, there's no benefit paid out. Like this doesn't make any sense. And they all say that. They all get really scared, but they don't find out about it until it's like, all right, well, you got to make a decision, like literally today. And how do you make these? That's $1 million decision potentially. You can do the math pretty easily, and that's what we do at VetLife, is help people kind of navigate this stuff, because nobody talks about it, and it's a huge loss potential, because that's where people are scared and fearful, and they don't know how to make the decision. So we want to help navigate them through that, and then create better opportunities and to use those benefits better, because it's just sad when over 80% are making very tough decisions, and they're not making a bad decision. There isn't one. They're simply not knowing about available ways of doing this stuff. And since again, many years ago in the military, this is how American society worked. It's like, yeah, this is all good. Just go through, yes sir, take the thing. It just isn't in that. It's 2018 in the United States of America, in the sharing economy with all these benefits. There's no better time in all of history to be somebody, having a change for an opportunity than a veteran in the United States of America. Roman soldiers didn't have these opportunities, and yet we go, oh, our poor veterans, how do we hire them? It's like, no, but like, oh, you're a veteran, dude, you have a lot going for you right now. I could totally use you in this. What are you good at? You like talking to people? Cool. I don't worry about all the other skill sets. You'll learn that as you go. Like, let's just kind of teach you some of this stuff. And that's what we do. It seems quite simple. Like, why would I say, come here and go through my 6-month training program, and then hopefully you work out? And then if you don't work out, like, yeah, that hurts for me, but I'm still the employer. Wow, what does it do to you, the soldier who just always figured things out, and then you get laid off? That's even worse than not finding a job you like. Like, you think it's like a double failure. Man, it happens too often. And so it's not the PTSD necessarily that's always, causing the problems after the military. There's tons of support there. Thank God that we did that right. These guys who have, have a lot big injuries and stuff, we have tremendous medical and psychological care for that. But it's that kind of like, oh, you look like you're doing all right, dude, which was me, because I technically was. But eventually, if you don't find that mission again, because we signed up to serve our country, not our government. And so if we can remember that, then that gives us easier ways to find a mission to get behind, to find something good versus just a paycheck.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I love your approach to that, man. That's awesome. So what would you say the biggest misconception among veterans about their benefits? And the second part is, what's the biggest roadblock to a veteran fully utilizing said benefits?
It's the biggest roadblock is self-responsibility, and that's just a hard thing to drive into anybody, really. I mean, it took me 38 years, right? And so to know that, no, you're signed up to serve, like this, creates a financial benefit, either in a paycheck form or what other form, simply adding up. Like, all right, if I stay in this long, I get promoted these few times. Like, you can literally add up what those numbers are and just realize, like, holy cow, I am an income producing entity. Like, and this goes for anybody in any job. It's just in the military, you can literally, as long as you don't really screw up, you can pretty much map out what your career is going to look like, at least financially, right? And things change. They kind of kick people out early sometimes if they need a downgrade. But let's just take a ballpark average. If you were to do a career in the military as an officer, that's over a $3 million income source, like almost guaranteed. And so that's an obstacle that we want to change. It's like, no, man, you value yourself. Like realize what this is. Serving in the military, where you're not taking home student loans, where you might not like a job, you might like a boss, but you're going to move around so often. They move you for every time you move duty stations. They pay for all that. They give you housing allowances. Like, you're going to come out with some sort of experience. So let's value that, honor your service by properly putting a number on it.
Okay. There you go. Nice. So, can you get into the actual programs at US Vet Life that you have?
Yeah. So we got a number of things that we're going to be rolling out, but more specifically, we focus on the three major kind of myths or stories that people don't understand. One is this military pension protection plan. Like when you have a military pension, it comes in on a monthly basis, starting at age 40 or whenever you get out of the military for the rest of your life. Like it's good. They changed the system up recently, and that's kind of a similar but slightly different story now. That's about it. More like the federal government is where it's changing, but still many, many years until that fully switches over. But that problem, the understanding about how much that's worth and then how to protect it, the government plan is called Survivor Benefit Plan. It's great, but it's all just kind of systematic, and so that's what they brief at that final brief. So we just want to try to get the information out about it as soon as possible. And then we talk about the SGLI, VGLI, service members or veterans group life insurance. And these are just the standard kind of very similar to an employee plan. Fortunately, there's no reward for health. You don't have any ownership over it. It's literally just comes out of the paycheck. And people are usually paying about twice as much as they would need to do if they did it on their own. So that should be a conversation that's had. And we can help facilitate that pretty easily using an app on your phone. That's what makes working with us cool is we took the pain out of getting something like a life insurance policy and made it cool again, because it really is a cool thing. It's not about death. Unfortunately, most of these term policies don't get paid out because people buy them, and 98% of the time, you got to get hit by a bus because the chances of you dying are really slim. So a lot of money gets wasted doing that kind of stuff. So we try to upgrade and teach the more advanced ways to do it, and that's what we want to do by moving into that 1% and get people to do that. And then we focus on the retirement as people are nearing retirement, probably in their 50s and 60s. A lot of veterans have old thrift savings plans or old 401ks from different companies they moved around, and you're like, well, man, this has added up a little bit. The stock market is now at all-time highs. It's well past that correction. Usually it's every 3 years there's a market downturn, and we're 10 years into it. Right. And so people start to worry if they're nearing that time. How do I protect this? Like, or what do I even do with it? Because a lot of times people think, oh, I've got the money's just there. It's being organized, right? No, you need to pay attention to it. So we can really help have that story and talk about ways to do that, and therefore, make sure that you have enough retirement income to maintain your lifestyle and supplement whatever pension you're getting from the military, and basically create a private pension. Is one way to do it. So that's kind of stuff we like to do at Vet Life.
Sounds like you're I hate to use the corporate word agile, but it sounds like you guys are taking a real agile approach to all this, where you're being sensitive to the technology, and you're not too big to be able to implement pieces of technology like apps and whatnot to make these things happen, and skipping maybe we don't need this kind of person on board because there's an app that does that. Can you talk about a little bit about that?
Well, it's not even about technology replacing people, because we think the technology simply makes our job easier and frees us up to not have to do stuff we don't necessarily want to do or need to do anymore.
Maybe not replace a person, but replace the time spent manually.
Yeah. So really what we want to do is create, like I was saying earlier, kind of individual opportunities versus hiring employees. And so that's where that mentorship model comes in. So a lot of times we'll work with somebody that doesn't necessarily already has their own business, but at the same time they're kind of in that in-between stage where I don't know how to brand myself or network or tie into partnerships and stuff. And so since I'm an influencer in the military space, I'm connected to a lot of these military bloggers and podcasters and YouTubers, and so if a brand wants to how do we work with the military and veteran market? Well, I've got a completely different. I've got that 30,000-foot view, and usually everybody wants to work with veterans and military locally, which is great, of course. But how do we tap in to that either national market or that online market? Even if you only need 100 customers or 1,000 customers, you can still do that nationally. That's what social media is. How do we use that? Mm-hmm. So we teach how to do that, whether it's using things like LinkedIn. Most people use LinkedIn wrong. They use it like a resume, and it's not. It's your story. It's your brand. You got to own it. And so teaching those opportunities creates all sorts of flexibility, because I honestly don't care what somebody does on a day-to-day basis. I've got no time frames or responsibilities. Usually it comes down to like, oh, you'd be good for this project. Cool. Let's go figure it out.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's see. Do you have any speaking engagements or any events that you want to talk about?
Actually, we just signed up, and you can go to the front website of militaryinfluencer.com, and we are going to be one of the sponsors at that event. And it was at that event last year where I had the wake up call to tie all this together. And a year later, we're going to do the closing party and be the hosts for that. And we're bringing our own bands, ironically, to do it, because we have some friends with our partner companies. And we're going to throw an awesome party and be very excited to tie it in, from 1 year later.
Yeah, talk about progress.
Look what happened. All I did was say, oh, everybody's here, wants to collaborate. That's the thing. We need to literally partner up and figure out how to work together as a network, as a proper, not a multi-level marketing network.
Right.
It's a flat network. That's what this new revolution gives us. It's hard to see because, usually up in a hierarchy where there's somebody's the boss of a boss of a boss, or even in the financial world, it's a multi-tiered where different offices or supervisors get tied into everything. It's all set up the same. Like every military, it's all one top-down approach, and it doesn't have to be that way anymore. It just really doesn't. We see it all the time in front of us, but it's hard to recognize. And I just want to give people the most profitable way and flexible way, and to not be worried about it, and have a ton of support around them to do it. I mean, that's really my personal mission is to create veterans who can go out and feel like they can go follow their mission and not worry about it financially.
And so let me ask you this. So when I say this, I know that the answer will change probably in 2 months or 6 months. I know from my business, when I talk about end game, what I thought it was going to be just 2.5 months ago, it's already changed. So right now, today, what do you see as the end game for U.S. Vet Life?
The end game is one-stop shop. I don't know. I don't want to be one of those, like, just a website where you can come and get information about everything. In a way, we help launch brands or missions. We create, incubate, whatever word, some version of that. I think as partners, though, in a way, we create an ecosystem where everybody can kind of work together and partner up. Someone's got a good idea. Cool. What's your good idea? Actually, here's a guy who could help you do that, because you can't do it alone. Just like I now have a director of my COO. We just finalized last week. He flew out from LA. While I'm the visionary in all this, I have an integrator. You met Ethan.
Yeah.
And so Ethan is the meathead, geeky, like loves all this stuff.
Doesn't miss leg day.
Yeah, he loves it. No, and he loves. He's actually very, very professional bodybuilder.
I saw. I was doing a little creeping on his Facebook. I was like, "Geez, dude, come on." Super
impressive, super smart, and so. It's like everything I was missing to finally pull this off. Been looking for a lot, asked a lot of people, but if it wasn't, it had to have been him. Like, that's one of those things where, like, oh, I see, okay, cool. Now I know how to teach other people to do it. Most people are stuck. If you read the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, we all know it.
Love it.
Like, you're getting stuck in your business. Don't make your program better. It's already good. Like, it is. It just is. Like, if you read 3 more books than the other guy, you need to go find an audience. Friend of mine, don't even worry about charging them yet. Find some or get it. Don't even. That's what I try to tell veterans is be in a position where you don't need a job, where you can literally go to someone and say, listen, I like what you're doing. I like how you do it. I want to learn from you. Tell me what I'm going to do. Somebody walks up to me, I'll figure out how to make them profitable as well. That's it. It's so simple. And few veterans know that they're allowed to do that. And I'm saying, hey, we're here. You're allowed. We don't always know what it's going to look like. Who cares? Save some money, be in a position to find guys like us. It doesn't have to be me. And if it's not me, I'll point you in the right direction, because that's why we network, to actually use the network, not just have business cards.
So it almost sounds like you're on the networking side, and you're almost creating a Synapse-like environment amongst veterans.
Yes, sir. I'm crediting Keith for all this, absolutely.
Right.
But no, I want to take it into our community. I don't know exactly what it looked like, and probably have an online component. Maybe have some mastermind type components. Those are very, very key now. And anybody's doing masterminds, like I want to create one here in Richmond, by the way. So if you're interested, please hit me up.
Yes.
Because we need to do it. We're literally, it's not just, I've done the whole pay $20,000 and go sit in a room with a guru and be like, oh, take a bunch of notes and then bye everybody. And then, no. It's like, yeah, exactly. Now what next? What next? So learn from my mistakes. No, find a team. And a mastermind doesn't have to be around one individual person. Just find a group of 5 or 10 people. And that's where I think where we can kind of go with the military thing. We find these like little breakout groups where we communicate and figure things out. So that'll be fun. That'll be fun as a project over the next year or so to grow the Tech for Troops concept. What we're trying to do there. And as we're going to Virginia Beach next week with Keith to sit on a panel for the Tidewater thing. So very excited about that. I already know we got rumblings in DC and Tampa. So tremendous opportunity to really do some cool things that I've been all over the country. Nobody's doing this. So
yeah,
for Synapse members and for those thinking about getting into it, there are crazy things the potential that can come on a national level. And so it's really cool to have you guys all a part of it and been so welcoming to all of us and these crazy ideas.
Yeah. I just feel so lucky to have stumbled upon Synapse. It's like, I don't think I would have made it without it. If I had, it probably would have took a hell of a lot longer.
Yeah, man. Well, it's been really cool watching you grow in the few months that I've been coming in out of town. So,
yeah, things are wild for me right now.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm not, but let's say I'm a veteran. I'm screwed up my benefits, or my benefits are
no, you didn't screw it up.
My benefits are a complete mystery to me. How do awesome. I get a hold of you? How do I engage U.S. Vet Life?
Absolutely. Look me up always connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. Just do a quick message me on there, but please connect with me. And other than that, you can go to usvetlife.com just to see our website. We're about to launch a kind of upgraded one here soon, so looking forward to that. And of course, you can message us on Facebook at m.me/USVetLife.
And I will get all of those links in the actual video and the description.
Cool.
For all of that stuff. So any last shout outs or anything you want to mention before we wrap up?
I mean, just super lucky. I mean, thank you so much. It's been very fun meeting you and having a beard competition as we do. As you can see on the video. But no, I just want to really honestly, from my heart, thank Synapse Richmond. Every member that I've met and got to know as I was leaving the family behind back in San Diego. Jen really appreciates that. Stuggy appreciates it. So we're looking forward to get to meet all of you. So Synapse, shout out to all of you.
Yeah, nice. All right, man. Well, that's it, folks. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming on the show, Scott. Man, I certainly appreciate it. I know this is still early in the show. This is only show number 4, so I definitely appreciate you spending your time coming on. So everybody have a positive and productive day. Peace.
Bye-bye.